Today's conversation is sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners.
I wanted to be able to build a passive income stream. By growing my portfolio, I can now scale. I can bring in property managers, I can bring in asset managers, and I can build bigger and better systems so that I can replace myself.
You're listening to the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels, the #1 podcast for long-distance real asset investing.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels, and we're back for another amazing conversation. You're really going to love this one. This is fantastic. But I can't even move forward without saying thank you so much for continuing to be here, to invest your time with us and listening and connecting with our fantastic guests. So if you want to leave an honest written review and you've not done that yet, we've got a nice video. You can do that. For those of you who've already left it, thank you so much. And thank you for tagging us on LinkedIn, on Instagram. It's fantastic. We're going to be doing a lot more stuff over there as well, especially on Instagram. Check us out. And for those of you who want to check out any of the previous episodes, well over 300 at this point, just go to firstgencp.com/podcasts and you can find everything that you need just there. So firstgencp.com/podcasts. Listen, today we are going to talk to someone who's has a strong background in business development, sales leadership, sales management, who has been able to move from working for others to working for and serving others through his own company platform. And I'm really excited for you to hear more about the conversation that we have with Eskridge, and we're going to do that just after this. So if you want to understand how analyzing issues and identifying solutions for others can springboard your long-distance investing success, then you're in luck. Because you know what? Today, with our conversation, you are going to get the opportunity to meet not only the father of 5, this gentleman also started in the IT space in biz dev. That's really great for a lot of us that are in sales and in sales leadership here. Also, early on in his career, he was an investment advisor in the financial services industry. And get this, I want to hear more about the wedding planning event company that is also part of what he has going on. Maybe I'm letting too many things out of the bag, but it gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, multifamily real estate investor extraordinaire, Mr. Eskridge. Senate, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Billy. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, man, that makes 2 of us. Actually, it makes a whole bunch of us because, as you know, we're in the top 1.5% of podcasts globally. And so there are a lot of people that are going to be learning from you and going to take that learning and put it into action and will continue to move towards their goals as a result of this conversation. No pressure, by the way. You're a seasoned pro. You know how this kind of stuff works. So you know the whole story, Senate. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. Well, technically, I'm going to ask you more than 5 questions, but you're going to get 2 of the questions that I always ask in the beginning. You're going to get 3 in the end. And so I want the Going Long family to start to get to know you right away. So help us understand, where is it that you call home?
Yeah, I live in Twin Falls, Idaho. It's a very beautiful area. It's sandwiched right between Boise and Salt Lake City. It's a great area with skiing and the desert and this giant canyon. I love where I live.
Oh, fantastic. Sounds amazing. And you know what? That takes us to some question number 2, which is about positivity. And I really, really love positivity. The Going Long family loves positivity. So help us understand, Senate, what is the most positive thing that's happened to or for you in the last 24 hours?
So yesterday, I spent the entire day with my wife, who is an amazing human being, my best friend, the love of my life. We traveled to go and meet some speakers for an event that we're planning, to see some of our old friends. Long story short, we spent 2 hours in a car together one way, and then we spent 2 hours in a car together the other way. And we're both very active and very busy, and we don't get a lot of time together. So that 4 hours in the car together yesterday was absolutely just gold for me.
That is absolutely fantastic. So can I ask a question? Like, you were driving in the car. Who drove there and who drove back?
I drove the whole way. Both directions.
Okay. All right. Cool. Appreciate you sharing that. So I'm really excited for the Going Long family to find out more about your story, how you're making a positive impact out there as well. So One of the things that you don't know about me, but the Going Long family does, Senna, is that I am a recovering perfectionist. And so what that means is sometimes I do things that maybe I shouldn't, like try to tell your entire backstory in, I don't know, 2.5 seconds. You've done way too much. You've impacted too many people, and it was probably never going to happen that way, which is, well, I try it anyway. So here's the thing. I need your help. I know you're our special guest, so I need your help. I'm asking for a favor. Actually, I'm going to ask you for 2. The first one is if you can tell your backstory in your own words, take as much time as you want because you are our special guest. And number 2, the one thing that I would ask is, as you're telling your backstory, can you talk to us about some of the major decisions that you've made to get to this point in your journey? And then we'll see where you and I take the conversation from there.
Yeah, for sure. So I lived in Idaho my entire life, and I've been some kind of an entrepreneur pretty much my entire life. I mean, I was the kid in grade school that sold things out of his locker, right? Like I was just that person. I always knew that if I wanted to have more, it was up to me, right? And I needed to go out there and I needed to hustle. And in that realm, I've always done some kind of sales or management or coaching. And the reason they all fit together, and a little caveat of my opinion is I believe that everything in life is sales, right? So management is sales, right? You're managing people, convincing them to do what you want them to do. Even teaching is sales. You got to sell somebody to learn something. Even parenting is sales, right? So I've done some kind of sales all the way through growing up, and bounced around trying to find my right niche. I sold everything from duct tape to razor blades for painters to Teflon tape, right? I've sold a little bit of everything, but I got into real estate, and which I know that all of the audience is going to want to know about. That decision point was something that was very important to me. I was living about 20 miles from where I live today, and I was driving back and forth. I had 3 cars going back and forth every single day. My wife, myself, and my oldest daughter were driving, and we sat down, we did the math. Gas was really high at the time. We were going to save approximately $800 a month if we moved closer to where we worked. And that was almost a house payment at the time. So we decided that we needed to move. Well, I didn't do a lot of research on how to sell a house at that point. It was right about 2008, 2009. And I'm sure lots of people in this conversation know what that meant. I could not sell that house. So the decision point was, what do you do with a house that you can't sell at the market rate? Do you discount it? Do you give up on it and let it go back to the bank like all those other people had been doing? Or do you rent it out? And I decided to rent it out. And that really was the launching pad of my real estate career. I realized that I could do this, that I could become a real estate mogul, right? And that's what I thought I was doing. I learned later that I wasn't. But I started growing a portfolio of real estate, single family houses. I started doing fix and flips. I started doing burrs. I started doing a little bit of tiny bit of wholesale on accident, not on purpose, but just started building this portfolio, then moved into duplexes and triplexes. And I grew a pretty sizable amount of real estate in that single family space, the small multifamily, things like that. And I quickly had realized that I'd done more real estate transactions than most agents in our town.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite impressive. I thought I was doing really, really well. But see, that was always a side thing for me. I still had a business and a job like you talked about right earlier. I was a financial advisor. I help people invest in stocks and bonds and mutual funds and life insurance and things of that nature. And then a few years into that business, which was going really, really well, I had a local company come and ask me to help them grow their IT business. It was a managed services provider, and I did that. I took it from 3 clients to well over 100 clients, and was just working this full-time job in what you call business development, biz dev, right? Mm-hmm. And going into businesses and things of that nature. And at one point, I sat back and I really kind of looked at my life, and I realized I basically had 3 full-time jobs. I still had my financial advising business, which was kind of you call it on autopilot. I was just servicing my existing clients, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still a lot of hours and expense and continuing education and those type of things. And then I had this full-time job, which 60 hours a week selling IT services. And then I had this portfolio of rental properties, which when I got into it, I thought would be a passive income. There's nothing passive about rental properties. Let me tell you that right now. If there's nothing passive about rental properties. Yeah. So I had to make some changes. And so this is 2019, 2020. And I really sat back and I just started studying and researching and learning everything I could about commercial real estate because I knew I needed to go bigger. And so I found apartments, figured out the apartments were the thing for me. And I went all in on apartment buildings. And by what I mean by that is I joined a mentorship group, which I'm a big fan of mentorships. I outgrew that very quickly, found my second mentorship group, and then started selling all my single family houses and rolling all those profits into multifamily. Quickly decided figured out that I could leave, shut down my financial advising business, and then I could leave my job because I replaced my income with multifamily apartments. But then I figured out I was going to run out of money. And so I went and found a third mentorship group that taught me how to help other people invest in multifamily and bring that money into my business. And that's really where I am today is I focus now on helping busy professionals take the money they're making and invest it into multifamily so that they can eventually replace their income with passive investments in the multifamily space.
Okay, fantastic. So being able to help others to do that, there's so many different areas that I want to take this, right? Because we have so many people that are in IT and are in leadership and in sales and all of the things that you talked about before. So, I mean, I could take this a million different ways, but there was something that you mentioned early on. Well, there's actually two things that I really want to ask beyond the wedding planning stuff. But you said in 2019, 2020, you got into commercial real estate and you said that you needed to go bigger.
Mm-hmm.
You needed to go bigger. And so I'm always interested, especially when someone has done like single family residences, smaller multifamily, and there's this need to go bigger. Yeah. Talk to us about what that means to you and why did you feel compelled to need to go bigger?
Well, there's really three different reasons that kind of blend on top of each other. Have you ever seen a Venn diagram, right? Where there's got three different circles, they really kind of fit together and you got to understand all three of them. Yep. So the first one is single family residences are very, very risky and they take a ton of work, right? So like the term, the bang for the buck comes to mind, right? Mm-hmm. Owning a single family house, you're going to make somewhere between $100 and $200 a month per house that you have. And duplexes, maybe a little bit more, right? You're at 3 to 4, maybe. Mm-hmm. Well, I can't tell you how many times that I had to put a new furnace in one of these things and blew out 2 or 3 years worth of profits. And then what about the amount of time that I'm putting into it? Mm-hmm. That's something that is absolutely critical was my time that I was spending. I figured it out. I was averaging about $40 an hour in the single family space. Well, I'm sure that all the people on this podcast can understand you can make $40 an hour a lot easier ways. So it's the bang for the buck right there. That's something that I had to do something different for that reason. The second one was I wanted to be able to become work optional. I wanted to be able to build a passive income stream. And by growing my portfolio, I can now scale. I can bring in property managers, I can bring in asset managers, and I can build bigger and better systems so that I can replace myself. It's very similar to, small businesses like, I can think of 100 examples off the top of my head, but imagine the person that is running a taco truck, right? That's actually literally selling the tacos and cooking the tacos and cutting up the meat. His profit margin's huge, but he has to be there every single day to go to work. where he doesn't make any money. But the guy that owns, I don't know, 100 Taco Bells can go sit on the beach and still make the same amount of money. Mm-hmm. And then the last one was, I've always been somebody that wanted to help other people and have an impact on them. And by investing and building and getting into apartment buildings, I can help people in 3 different ways. So this is something that's really important to me. I can help the community that I'm working in. See, because I typically buy kind of junky buildings and I fix them up, right? So I'm removing an eyesore from my community and lifting up the place that I'm working. Number 2, I can help the tenants. See, I believe that the best way to make something profitable is to take a tenant with a kind of a passive mindset that's going to leave someday and give them pride of ownership, pride of a place to live, and help them become a resident in a community where they want to stay and they want to live for a long time. And then finally, I get to help my investors by giving them amazing rates of return with huge tax benefits. So that all kind of overlapped together.
Yeah, and I appreciate you being able to break that down, right? From the the risky, the perceived risk perception, the ability to have create work optional for yourself, and also to be able to help others and help them in those 3 different ways. One of the things that I will always say is a lot of it depends on the individual. Like, I'm wired very much like you. Like, I want to do bigger things just because a lot of the background that I had. I managed a $100 million business across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and so I like to be able to have things like you talked about that are scalable. Also, and I'm sure you and I both know, like, a number of investors that their bread and butter is single family residences, is a small multifamily. And it's kind of like one of the things that I also love about this space is that depending on how you're wired, there's really a space for everyone to play. Like, yes. I don't really want to do the single family residences because, like, to me, it's just too many moving parts. When you have one specific place and there's a lot of moving parts at that one place, then that works best for my mindset and the things that I'm hearing. And I hear when you say, yes, it's also to help those that are listening. You're like, yeah, but maybe that's too big. I think once you do the single family residences for a while, you start realizing, like, hang on a second, I'm repeating a lot of this same work and I could just do it in one place really, really big. But anyway, so I just wanted I appreciate you sharing that perspective and giving us some like really Senate appropriate kind of perspective, so that those that are wired like me and you are like, oh, hang on a second, maybe I should be doing some bigger stuff because this is doing me in. So anyway, you talked about helping others. You also talked about mentoring, coaching. I know this is something that you're also very passionate about. Expand on that a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about how you developed this affinity for coaching, mentoring others. And also, it sounded to me like you yourself also invest in yourself through coaching and mentoring.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of different answers there. So first, let's talk about what I do for myself. I am a self-pronounced personal development junkie. My wife and I, we travel. Our fun, our vacation is to conferences and personal development, things like that. Some people go sit on the beach. We go see Tony Robbins. That's just what we do. And I'm just all about it. You can probably see a ton of books back there. That's a very small amount of my collection. Always trying to grow and improve. So how I developed this affinity, it's kind of actually a little bit selfish. I really love the moment when people figure something out. My favorite age of children is that like 2 to 4 years old, because they're running around and their eyes are like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I just figured this thing out, right? That second where you and I, if I teach something to somebody and their eyes light up and they're like, all of a sudden I get it. I love that moment. It just feels so good, right? I know that I helped them get it. And then also at the same time, I know that there's this ripple effect to positive improvement. When I help one person make even a 1% change in their life, they're going to go out and touch 100 people. And even if it's only 1/10 of 1%, you imagine the differences that makes on people. And it just feels absolutely amazing to me. And so I've always been drawn to coaching and teaching. And I did it very kind of passively at first. When I started into real estate, I taught people how to do fix and flips and everything. And when I got into multifamily, I started giving away everything that I knew, because that's what you do, right? And then at one point, I got to the point where I had to say no to people. I didn't have enough time in the day, and I felt really bad about that. So I started narrowing that down, and now I do charge for coaching. And the reason I do that is for two reasons. Number one, I can build a structured program around it. So I can invest into like systems, that type of thing. And then the number two is to make sure that I'm only working with people that are really serious. Right. So I love it.
Yeah. So you're working with people that are serious. You're able to reinvest into infrastructure. I guess I'm gonna go off script here, but I guess it's okay because it's my show. But did you have the problem of, hey, do you mind if I pick your brain for 5 minutes? Hey, can I pick your brain for 20 minutes? Hey, do you have time for a quick coffee? And so did you have that? Does that ring a bell at all?
All the time. And my calendar it just filled up and filled up and filled up. And I'm the type of guy that says yes when people ask me for that. And I just had to say no.
So, and it's interesting you say that, right? Because one of the things I had to eventually start doing is saying, well, yes, absolutely. And so in order to have that time in the calendar, we're going to have to say there's an exchange, because when you're doing 6 hours a week or 9 hours a week or however many, sometimes it's even a lot more than that when you get the pick your brain and the coffee thing. But yeah, so I think that is one of the things that you are still able to help and you're still able to give back. And at the same time, not being completely exhausted because you don't have enough time to, drive 2 hours one way and 2 hours the other way with your wife to do these kinds of things. So I was just curious if that happened to you, but it sounds like it's also something that is very, very similar. So speaking of which, how do you go about identifying? You talked a little bit about, you're helping those that are willing to invest in themselves, but how do you identify the right students, for lack of a better term, like that you feel like there's the highest probability of that individual being able to attain whatever goal or objective that the two of you decide is going to be the right objective for them?
Yeah. There's a few systems that go into that. I've got an application process where I ask a bunch of questions about their background, but the most important thing are their goals and their vision. I can't teach positivity. I'm not figured out how to change somebody's attitude and their outlook on life. Right? I can give them the seeds. I can point them in direction of mindset and that type of thing. But it's all about that positive attitude, that belief that they can do it. Those type of things. I can give somebody the skills, right? I really can, and I can teach them visualization, and I can stretch their mind. But if they're really closed-minded, it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's really being able to identify those individuals that have that growth mindset, right? That are willing to say, okay, look, I want to expand. I want to be able to do this. I'm willing to do this in order to achieve the specific outcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in having that type of application process and being able to get, one-on-one time with them and recognize that, okay, this is an individual that you believe you can help them move forward or get closer to their goal, which is fantastic. Maybe you want to talk to us a little bit about and then we'll get into the going along final three here in just a second, but talk to us a little bit about your coaching process and your coaching process, how it works. You talked a little bit on the front end, but maybe you could expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I really believe that the best way to learn is by doing. Mm-hmm. And so, I've got some pre-recorded content and some videos and that type of thing that obviously I give to people to go through to ensure that they've got a solid baseline knowledge of information. I provide them with some specific books to read and that type of stuff that's kind of guided. Learn this, learn this, learn this. But more importantly it's about putting them to work, mm-hmm. and then holding their hand and protecting them from failure. So what I really like to talk about is theoretical knowledge. Mm-hmm. It's very valuable, right? Imagine like going and getting a PhD, right? Or doctor is a very good example of this, right? You go and spend, 10 years or whatever it is, 12 years learning to be a doctor, but then you've got to go and do a residency, right? Where you actually get out there and real world practice. And so what I like to do is I like to give them specific homework. Go do this, right? And then come back and report. Call me if you have a problem. And so it's all about like being actively working. You can't learn how to swim by sitting on the edge of a pool and watching people swim.
Right. Yeah. No, great. Yeah, it's moving from theory to practice, being able to get that feedback, recognizing, and this is one of the things I've also learned, Sinet, is, having lived in Europe for the last, little over 2 decades, I've learned 4 additional languages. So, speak English, Spanish, Catalan, which is a language they speak here locally, French and Italian. Like, you have to recognize that unless you're a native speaker, and the other 4, I don't speak, and this is tough for me because I'm a recovering perfectionist, is that you can learn as much as you can in a book, but you eventually have to go out and you have to start to practice. You have to take the things that you've learned in the book and actually go out. And chances are you're not going to get it right the first time. So it's always great if you have a native speaker that's somewhere nearby, because they're going to help correct you. They're not going to let you say things that are too terribly wrong, but they're there to help and guide and bring you back on track so that eventually you reach a level of fluency, very much in the similar way that you are accompanying people, that you are helping to guide them so that they don't fall flat on their face and they continue to move forward. So something that definitely resonates with me. Anything else you want to add before we get into the Going Long Final 3?
You talked about, we talked a little bit about personal development and coaching, and then we touched briefly on my wedding and event business. One thing that I really like to talk about is my wife and I, and really it's my wife's passion project, but we've got an event that we host in our town called the Idaho Summit that we do every single year. And this is just to go back to that coaching and personal development, personal impact. We bring a world-class personal development event to a small town of 100,000 people. Imagine like a Tony Robbins style of event, right, where we bring it in here. And the reason I bring that up is just to reinforce how much I love giving an impact. And we don't do it for money. In fact, we lose money on it. Don't tell anybody, but we lose money on this.
It's our secret. But a whole lot of people know. A whole lot of people know.
So we do this to bring that kind of personal development positivity to our town. And I just absolutely love that day. It's one of my favorite days of the year.
Fantastic. So the Idaho Summit in Twin Falls, Idaho. So when do you all normally do that?
It's May, usually like second week of May. It's May 15th, 2024.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, everybody, mark your calendars. Maybe we'll help you move it into the black.
Nice.
No, so really appreciate that. And also too, when you have a passion project where you're able to positively impact a community, which is one of the things that you talked about before, it's great to hear that. So definitely check out what they're doing at the Idaho Summit, everyone. And I'm sure you'll be able to see this here somewhere easily. So Sinet, man, we got to get into the Going Long Final 3. And the thing is, I never ask any of our special guests the Going Long Final 3 unless you tell me that you're ready. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Why did I know you were going to say that? So here we go. So question number 1 of the Going Long Final 3 is, I talked to you about, I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, but I've been living over on this side of the pond for the last 22 years. Yes, 22 years. Amazing. And so I always want to know, like, have you share with us, like, what is your favorite European city, Sinet, that you've either visited or is still on your bucket list to visit?
I've actually never been to Europe, but I have several cities that I want to see. And so I'd love to give you a big old list, but I know you want
just one.
Yeah. And so I would say Athens is the place I want to go. I love that history and all of the architecture that they have there, and the pictures I've seen of the architecture. So Athens for sure, that would be my first destination.
Okay. So Athens is number 1. I almost went to Santorini over the summer, but yeah. So Athens. So we'll take it. And I know you have a long list, and I appreciate you sharing Athens and selecting one. You're kind of an overachiever. I get this whole thing about you saying that you're an overachiever. You want to give like 10. I know that. So appreciate that. So Athens, we're going to include that. And I want to get to question number 2, because one of the things that I've also recognized is, as people are more and more successful, typically is because they have tried more things. They've gone from theory to practice. And typically when that happens, not everything goes according to plan, right? And so I'd like you to kind of go back to something that you either you call it you made a mistake, or you had a learning opportunity, or a personal seminar, or whatever, where you paid 100% to learn something that you got wrong. I don't want you to think about really what didn't go right. I'm more interested in you sharing what happened afterwards, which is when you actually took the lesson away from what happened, because this is what really successful people do. When things don't work out, they stop, they assess, they see what went wrong. Then they put different strategies, tactics, and actions in place to minimize the probability of the same thing happening again. So, and I know I'm going to ask you a lot because I know you're an overachiever, but if you could select just one lesson that you want to share with the Going Long family, what would that one lesson be today?
Well, I would say that the lesson is to get out there and to go and do it again, right? And don't let your ego get in the way, right? Don't be embarrassed from your failure. Learn from your failure and be okay with admitting this didn't work out the way I wanted it to work out. So now I'm going to do this instead. Right. And I could give you 10 or 20 examples of that, exactly what it is but for me, the first time that happened to me, I was in my financial advising business, and I just went gung ho on this system, and I put a ton of money into it, and I had this big marketing campaign and my face everywhere, and it flopped, and it was literally, I was with one company. And that company was not what I thought it was. And I had to go do it again with another company, a new company. And so I had to admit to my clients, my family, my friends, my community, that I had made a mistake, and I had to let the ego go and do it again with a whole new company.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, and be able to get out there, do it again, learn from what happened the first time, and be able to course correct and things like that. So appreciate that, Sennett. And this brings us to question number 3. And this is the last one, man. This is going to take us home. So help us understand. And this is going to be super simple for you, because everyone, if you're not watching the video version, I can't believe I didn't say this earlier. Like, you really need to be watching the video version, because I think like Sennett's got this amazing wall of books, bookshelf of books. And it's really, really cool. So the thing is, I'd just love for you to share one to help fill our minds with knowledge. What is one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family today?
I actually want to recommend a book that is a little bit obscure, that not a lot of people have heard about.
Oh, even better.
Everybody knows Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich. Like, we've heard of this book several times. Yep. But what we don't know Napoleon Hill is he wrote another book called Outwitting the Devil. And Outwitting the Devil he actually wrote right after Think and Grow Rich, but it was locked away in a vault for like 75 years. Wow. Because his wife asked him not to release it, because it's literally it's a fable of him having a conversation with the devil. And so she was worried that people would think that he was a Satan worshiper and stuff like that. So it got locked away till after he died, after she died, all that kind of stuff. And it was only released, I'm not sure, 5, maybe 10 years ago. And it is one of the best books I've ever read. Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Okay.
Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. We've got it. We will include that in the show notes as well. And thank you for sharing that. That's the very first time in over 300 some odd episodes that anyone's ever mentioned that book. So fantastic. Sennett, man, you started by telling us about a wonderful 2-hour out and 2-hour back trip. You and your wife, you're driving the 4 hours. You are having an amazing time and sharing that positivity. From there, you know what? You realized that there's always something that was in you that made you want to do more, really focused a lot on biz dev, sales, management, leadership. And you know what? You decided that you were going to take the theory, put it into practice when you and your wife and one of your children recognized, well, hang on a second, if we don't drive 20 miles, we can save $800 a month. Like, that's pretty nice. It's almost less than almost 10 grand a year. By being able to make this one move. Well, you got ready to make the move, but then 2008, 2009 happened, and guess what? Kind of stuck. But you decided, hey, that's not going to stop us. Let's try something. And so you decided to take the option of creating or becoming a landlord. And so through that, you recognize like, hey, this is something you can build. You have lots of different areas within the single family and small multifamily, everything from BRRRR to wholesaling, fix and flip, and you gain lots of experience through a number of transactions. And also, like many people that are listening today or watching us, by the way, wink, wink, watch us, you also realize like, hey, listen, I can work my day job and I can build my own life and help to make my 9 to 5 optional. You did that, and you did that for a while to the point that you actually were able to replace your income, to the point where you and your family recognize that, hey, listen, we can do this full time. You've continued on that path. You continue to help with mentoring, with coaching, and doing it in a way that's helping to be a positive impact on others. I mean, you're even so focused, you and your wife, that you have your own summit there in your hometown of Twin Falls, Idaho, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And I know that I keep wanting to talk, but the Go Along family is like, Billy, just get to the question, man. Just ask him. So here's the thing. Everybody wants to know, Senate, what's the best way for the Go Along family to find out more about you, what it is that you're doing, and be able to contact you?
The best way to get a hold of me is through my website, Eskridge.com. I've got on there, you can get onto my social media from there. There's a contact me form. You can book a meeting with me. Anything you want to know is right there on my website, Eskridge.com.
All right, fantastic. So you've heard it here first, everybody. So go to Eskridge.com, find out more about what Sin is doing. Look, you can even reach out to him, have a conversation. I think that'd be absolutely fantastic. And listen, Senate, on behalf of the entire Go Along family, I want to say thank you very much for deciding to invest your time with me, with us. And really, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
All right, perfect. Hey, Eskridge or Senate, could you give me like 15 seconds and I'm going to wrap things up and I'll get you out of here. But listen, everyone, Senate's just shared so much knowledge with you. He's talked about his own experience. He knows what it's like to work your own dream at the same time you're working and building someone else's dream. He's seen what it's like to adapt with family, be able to move towards goals. Take today's conversation, share with 2 or 3 friends. Talk about it. Take the theory that you're hearing from him and put it into practice. Heck, even reach out to him. You just go to Eskridge.com. You can have a conversation with him. While you're doing that, moving from theory to practice, I'll be here preparing for the next conversation. So until then, go out, make it a great day, and thank you very much.